Hi, this is Debbie and I'm delighted to be joining Laura from Making Cards is Fun to celebrate her 7,000 YouTube subscribers. This video is part of a hop with lots of great giveaways, and to be eligible for those, please leave a comment below, and also there you will find a link to Emily, who is the next person in the hop. But before you go, I hope you'll join me as I look at how to embellish die cuts to really take them up a notch and add that wow factor. The one with nature set from Sam Says Stamp is one of my favourites. I love the graphic feel and I found it to be so versatile. I've also pulled out some Copic colours and I thought I'd make this an autumnal theme. I know we're still in the summer at the moment, but my mind's already started to move on to the next season. But let's get the background set up first, and I'm going to be using the tiny alphabet background from Sam Says Stamp. To get the best impression, I like to use the Misty stamping tool with these large background stamps, adhering it to the drawer of the Misty, and then placing my cardstock inside and treating it with an EK Success powder tool. This will help prevent any embossing powder sticking where I don't want to, because I'm going to move on to using Versamark ink to ink up the background. And then once I've stamped that, I'll make sure I give it a really good press down. I'm then going to move on to sprinkling white heat embossing powder over the stamped image, making sure I cover the whole panel and then giving it a good flick to remove any excess. Heat embossing can warp your card slightly, and the best way to try and avoid this is to make sure that your heat tool is really hot before you first bring it to the card. I'm going to place that to one side while I carry on stamping with the one with nature set. I've mounted the 3 leaves from the set onto the drawer of the Misty and inked those with Memento Tuxedo Black. And then I've attached the matching dies with washi tape and ran that through my die cutter. Having put the 3 leaves, I'm now going to put 2 of them to one side and just show you how I coloured the largest leaf. I'm going to speed the Copic colouring up so I can fit as much of it in as possible without making the video too long. I use a very basic Copic colouring technique of 3 shades of the same colour, and starting with the lightest shade, adding some of the medium tones for shadows, adding the darkest tone, and then working my way back through the 3 colours until everything's blended. I'm going to play some music while I continue to colour, and I will be back shortly. I continued on to colour the other 2 leaves, and now it's time to add some details. I'm starting with the Zig Wink of Stella clear glitter pen and adding subtle shimmer to the red areas of the leaves, and then I'm going to move on to adding some distressed glitter to the brown areas of the leaves, and to do that I'm going to squirt some multi-medium in matte from Ranger onto scrap card and then use an old paintbrush to paint the glue onto the areas that I want to glitter. Once the area is covered, I can then dunk that into my big tub of distressed glitter. That's from Ranger again, that's Tim Holtz's distressed glitter in clear rock candy. And then I can continue to move on through each of the areas until all of the brown is covered. Next I want to add a different texture again, and this time I'm going to be using Glossy Accents from Ranger, and this will add a beautiful shine to the orange areas and also bring out the depth of colour of the orange. It's quite surprising when you add Glossy Accents that you really get an increase in saturation of the colour that you've just covered. I hope you can see here the shimmer and the shine and the glitter and the glossy accents, all adding depth and dimension and texture and just something extra to the die cut. I've trimmed the panel of fog card with alphabet background down to 2.5 inches by 5 inches, and I'm starting to play around with where I'd like the die cuts to be. I want to create a focal point, a pop of colour on an otherwise neutral card base. Card base is from Nina Solar White in the £110 weight, and I've scored and folded that and then trimmed it to a 3.5 by 5 inch card. I'm going to use the painted Enjoy die from Simon Says Stamp to create the sentiment. And again, I want to add a little detail. I don't want to just cut it from plain card. And so on a scrap of card, I've used the same orange Copics that I used on the leaves. I've used those to create an ombre background. And then run the die on top through my die cutting machine. It's now time to start putting everything together, and I've put lots of foam adhesive on the back of the fog panel and attached that to the card base. I've chosen some rustic twine, wrapped that round the card base and then tied it into a bow. I've added foam adhesive to the back of all the leaves and now starting to place them onto the panel. I've also added some clear foam adhesive to the back of the Enjoy die cut. My initial plan was to place this die cut nearer the bow, however there was so much going on in that area anyway, I preferred it raised above the focal point. To coordinate with the leaves, I've also given the Enjoy die cut a good dose of glossy accents as well. And then the final embellishment to the card was to add some sequins and enamel dots. And that completes this card with its pop of colour for the focal point, surrounded by a neutral card base, but all that shimmer, shine, sparkle and glitter really add interest and detail. I very much want to thank you for joining me today. Again, congratulations to Laura for her 7,000 subscribers, and don't forget, if you want to be eligible for the giveaways, then leave a comment below before you hop on over to Emily. All the supplies used in the video today are linked in the YouTube description below, and you can also find them on my blog limedoodledesign.com.